Okay,
We're in living color.
that's right.
All right, we got guns. We got Shaman Zach. Okay, I need to.
I don't call myself a shaman though.
No,
Just so the people out there know.
Zach doesn't call himself that.
I wore my podcasting hat for you, and now you're not wearing your hat.
Yeah.
I thought podcasters had to have a hat. You know, I even dressed down. I put on a t-shirt, a hat.
Yeah, well, you dressed up none the least.
Yeah, I'm playing a role. You and Maria were talking about playing today, so I'm playing the podcast role with...
Heck yeah. Yeah, I had the hat on. It's that Patagonia hat, and, you know, it frames my face in a certain manner.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm rocking this extreme low buzz cut that might be new to a lot of people, but just becoming comfortable with my high, what do they call those? Receding hairlines, which I'm glad compliment me well, at least in my opinion. Yeah, me and Zach, we met each other in church, Christian church, 2008, 9.
Yeah, 8.
10, no, maybe like, well, a while ago.
It was 8. It was 08 because I was 16.
Oh, shoot, that's right.
I was doing...
We met firstly at a homeless ministry.
You were the pioneer of the homeless ministry with the Christian community college.
Yep, at Bible College.
Yeah.
Started cooking big meals and bringing them down to Keener Plaza. And Zach made his way there through other church friends. And then years later, I left my home church, is what we call it, and I visited churches. Was church hopping, which is like a no-no back then or something. I don't know.
Hopping and shopping,
and I went with Jenna and met you again there.
Right. And
then we had both like left church and gone on a journey. And I think I just remember through social media seeing like a Om tattoo pop up on your body and other spiritual tattoos. And then boom, you were in India doing the trip, I think a year before I made my way to Nepal. And it was just from afar observing your journey, your spiritual journey. And then we kind of coalesced at my like renaissance of psychedelics, and you had already been there. I mean, one question I wanted to ask you now, just because we're like here in it, is like, what would you say of psychedelics? Like, you know, to just kind of encapsulate the tool that they are, or like the lessons you learned from them, or like, yeah, I'm just curious from your perspective what you would say of psychedelics today.
Well, I jumped off the deep end. I was deconstructing my faith. I was about 19, moved away several times, came back to St. Louis, and ironically I had a friend that I had gone to church with who was an older woman who was kind of perceived as quirky and kooky, and also very generous and fun and sweet, and had a connection to. She told me that there was an address to go. There was an address of a house. They were doing something called ayahuasca. Start learning about the diet now, and to show up at this time. And she said she thinks I would love it, and I fully trusted her. So I started to do a little bit of a diet, and I showed up to this house and knocked on the door, and this old woman answered. Well, first it was actually a man who was happened to be Indian and all dressed up with this beautiful, colorful outfit, and he then went to get the head of the household, who was this older woman who was the one leading the ceremony, and she said, "You're too late. We already we took the medicine." So my quirky friend gave me the wrong time, but she said, "Listen, you're meant." She knew for somehow that I was supposed to be there, so she gave me another date. She said, "Come back in like 2 months," and I did it. And so my first experience with psychedelics was ayahuasca.
First ever,
before even doing mushrooms. And at the time, I was in therapy.
Well, had you smoked cannabis?
Yes, I was an avid pot smoker. I was a wake and bake kind of guy, and ayahuasca propelled me through so much. I mean, I released so much, to be vague, and I was in therapy at the time. My therapist, who was this older man who has no knowledge about psychedelics whatsoever. He was like, "What the hell happened to you? You are so different." He was like, "I don't know what this ayahuasca is, but I have other patients that need help." He was like, "You did 10 years of therapy in a weekend." So that was the beginning, the catalyst, and just I think everybody approaches psychedelics differently, and I think what you can receive out of them differ depending on your beliefs. But for me, they have really helped me tune into my own being, my own essence, my own energy, my own gifts. And also, I mean, you can journey in, you can journey out, right? I've had some really profound breakthroughs with the medicine by listening to my body, though. And then next thing you know, I'm having intense visualizations and locking into memories that are still in the body, pain, trauma, thoughts that are no longer serving me. And I always like to explain it to somebody who may not have had the experience. It's like we live in a very dense world. It's very intense. It's very dark at times. These things, they stick to us. And anytime I've walked, I usually, until recently, I've always had some kind of resistance going into a ceremony, a medicine journey. And I always come out grateful that I did it. Because I feel like a lot of the stuff that has been collecting and sticking onto me that I've been walking through the world carrying and not necessarily knowing is there, a lot of that gets released. And I walk a little bit lighter. I walk a lot taller.
For sure.
A lot more comfortable in my own body.
It's a real baptism.
Yeah.
It's a real full baptism. What would you say, like, I mean, you've played and explored a lot of different modalities of inner exploration and just body release and things like that. And so, you're talking about like the benefits of psychedelics on your journey, but what would you say of like a world outside of psychedelics? Because obviously not everybody is called to that path, and I don't think it's a necessary medicine to achieve any state that you can't achieve through breath work, meditation, body work. So where do you kind of fit it in like your whole toolbox of like similar experiences you've achieved outside of plant medicine and going forward, kind of how would you frame all that?
Say that one more time. Sorry, I got lost on the very end because my thoughts were moving.
Yeah. I mean, what would you share about similar altered states of mind or similar explorations of the inner outer world outside of plant medicine? What have been your experiences with those? Because I know you've I mean, even in charismatic churches or in Christian churches or different faiths you can arrive to. We both have arrived to many psychedelic experiences before we arrived to psychedelic experiences. Right. Let's just be real.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my disposition is that you kind of hit on it, like some psychedelics aren't for everybody, and you don't necessarily have to have psychedelics to have a certain experience. For me, in my experience, having psychedelics has given me a really good frame of reference for certain feelings, energies, frames of consciousness, have shown me new ways of thinking, shown me what certain feelings are like at a very intense level, which then in life, in the waking life, because I've experienced it already with the medicine in an altered state, I can actually, with concerted effort, get back into that space. And because the veil is so thin with the medicine, depending on your belief system of what is real and what isn't real,
depending on what you're capable of imagining.
Yes. My waking life feels more psychedelic without medicine every day now because of the experience that I've had on the medicine, watching the Matrix glitch, playing with reality. How many times have you or anyone who's watching this podcast thought of somebody and they text you? How many times have you had an idea and then all of a sudden the money appears, the vehicle, the person to assist you?
Yeah, so you're talking to the inner outer world.
Correct.
Reflecting feedback loop. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of helped me tune into those games, and it shifted how I play my game without the medicine. If that answers your question.
Yeah, it's certainly multi-dimensional, uh, place to explore. Yeah, I think I before I got to psychedelics, I got into holotropic breath work
Mm-hmm.
through a good friend I journeyed with throughout college. He got into breath work, and there's this style called holotropic breath work, and it was formed by someone notable back in like the 70s. So the United States had made LSD illegal, but all these people were using LSD not for music and sex and explorative experience, but a lot of people less reported on were
Mm-hmm.
using it in therapeutic settings. Aside with the whole like rock and roll hippie, free love movement. And so these people who were like, okay, it's not legal anymore. We want to obey the laws. They went to India and studied these forms of breath work to induce an LSD like state of mind. Brought it back to California, and all these like micro crews of people learned this like rapid breathing through your nose. And so we had found a holotropic breathwork meetup in Tennessee. It was like outside of Nashville, and we drive down there, and we're in college, and at this time we're like Christian in the church, whatever. And so we show up to his house. It was just in this regular neighborhood. And it was like all ex nuns. It was like 11 people. And they were all like older women above like 50 and 60. And they were like mostly nuns who had journeyed like out of their, practice, and or like some were in and out. And so then here it was me and my young friend. And you basically hold space for your partner while they're breathing. And with holotropic breathwork, there's like a soundtrack that goes with it, and it's like these kind of beats, kind of like African beats or jungle beats that kind of rise into an intensity and then kind of like come down. So your journey kind of like goes like that. And I remember dropping in a tiny bit. At this point, I'd been in deep prayer and like deep kind of charismatic, like spiritual Christian experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember my breath taking me to an altered state. Um, and I didn't drop in fully because at the time I wasn't really ready. But I just wanted to know that that was there. And I think that gave me a huge tool when I then entered into psychedelic ceremonies where I could go into my shamanic breathing. And that was always kind of a vehicle that took me further and deeper. And I don't know, for me, while my path did call me to psychedelics, I always kind of knew that I didn't have to, consume plant medicines to get to these higher views or into my body a little bit deeper, fuller. But um, yeah, what's like if you've done a psychedelic journey recently? What kind of brings you to that space? I know you said earlier like you feel like it kind of clears your book bag out. Anything you've been carrying for those months, it kind of like fleshes out the heaviness.
So just like a kind of a story to kind of paint a picture to what the experience looks like. It just so happened that I did a ceremony with a group of friends during some kind of cosmic astrological event. I can't remember. I think it was an eclipse. It was like in November, and then there was a eclipse that happened just the same next month. 1 month of the day was like in December, maybe. I don't know. This was a year ago. This isn't a very recent story, but it's a really profound experience. Um, and everybody was kind of more in a playful mood, but I could feel the medicine wanting to take me deep. So I got into child's pose where my head was tucked under my arms and I'm kind of like in a ball, and I put a blanket over me so that I could kind of go in, and I could feel this tightness in my lower back, hips, and I started to unwind it and kind of just throw my hips in a circular motion. just listening to the body. I have no idea where I'm going at this point. I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm wrestling with the medicine. Sometimes the medicine makes the body uncomfortable, so I'm like, let's just unwind this, uncork this screw. And as I'm uncorking the screw, my consciousness is actually starting to create a visualization of an elevator shaft that's a rope. And I'm like going down, 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 down a rope of an elevator shaft into this darkness. And at the end of the rope is a box. And I fit my entire essence into that box of darkness. And in that darkness was my most raw, naked self and all of my shame that is in my soul being. Whoa. There was sexual shame, ancestral shame. There was physical shame. There's shame around childhood experiences, right? And it was locked in that part of the body, and I wouldn't have known that it was there if I didn't unwind.
Yeah.
So fast forward,
right,
a month later on another astrological event, a month to the day, and this is unintentional or unknowing. I didn't even make the connection until months after. I'm in another event. Okay, so I forgot the biggest part of that. I'm unwinding that, and I get a vision of I'm in the tub, a white porcelain tub, and the water is washing down on me as I'm in this dark hole. And I'm seeing the vision of the water hitting me, and going down the white porcelain tub is mud and wine and blood and tar. And the visual that I'm getting is it just going down the drain mixed with water, diluted. And then I'm like transported, and I'm in the desert on the side of a road in a ravine, and it's raining, and the same thing happens where I'm oozing this mud, blood, wine, and water into the earth. And this dragon's breath comes out of the earth. This fire. It felt like dragon's breath. And it was instant knowing that it was like all of that was being burned away out of my being. So fast forward now to a month. I'm in a ceremony with some of the same people. And I don't smoke a lot, but when I'm with the medicine, I need a lot of tobacco. So I'm going upstairs, I'm chain smoking, and a friend comes upstairs, and I'm telling him about that experience. And the most profound thing happened. He asked me if I wanted to talk about my shame. Nobody, like, especially as a man, has ever just, like, given me the space to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And all of these memories were coming up as I was talking about it. Like, I got to this moment where I told this story about lying to my dad at 9 years old, and it was just, it just came up naturally in conversation. And I was like exposing all these things that were really personal and private, and I haven't shared with a lot of people, and I start to feel so uncomfortable after talking like 20 minutes. And I ran to the shower, down the hall, everyone's in the basement, and I get in my friend's shower, and I take my clothes off, and I'm in the shower.
He's seeking the waters.
I'm seeking the water. I'm like, I need to relax.
If we were in nature, we would have gone to the river.
Yeah. And I'm like sitting, I'm like, holy shit, this is where a lot of shame comes from, this moment where I lied to my dad, and then this whole belief system that like I'm bad, and like how much was birthed off of this moment. And I'm in the water, and it's rinsing down into the tub. And I didn't even know that I had foresaw this moment a month ago on the prior eclipse. And I started, my demons were coming out and hitting me over the head, and all of a sudden this voice came out to correct it. It was so powerful, so still and clear. It was like, all of these experiences that you have had made you who you are, and that is something to be proud of. Proud. You get to be proud of who you are. And so in that moment, I was transported back to that moment as a 9-year-old kid, where I looked at my dad when I told him a lie, and I said my truth. I ran away to live with my mom, and my dad made me promise I would come back, which then led into a huge custody battle that lasted for years. And I, as a 9-year-old person, looked at my dad in that spiritual realm and said, I want to live with my mom. Something I didn't feel like I could say at the time. And I just like was so healed in that moment. And I remember getting out of the shower and just walking differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took me months to unpack it, to realize that all that was rinsing down the tub. And it just like changed everything about how I moved through the world after that.
No, man. And man, thank you for sharing. And you hit so many key points, like, I want to highlight. One of them is mentioning, at the start of the psychedelic journey, and I too agree that, when a psychedelic enters in my body, you're kind of hyper aware of your body in a way that you are used to in everyday life, or you become numb to. And so, finding those like uncomfortable, spots in your body, and it helps if anyone's gonna go on a psychedelic journey or return to one, like to really yoga is obviously a great prep work. If you practice yoga, then you know how to identify tight spots in your body and how to move them around, and that becomes like such a huge vehicle when the psychedelic plant enters your body. And you had like a tightness in your lower spine, and as we're finding out, in medicine, like a lot of our emotional mental traumas are stored somewhere in the body. They don't just happen to us and stay in the mind. They get stored. And as you kind of like undid that corkscrew, like you actually had an experience. Your 9-year-old shame was stored in your lower spine. And this just brings great attention to why, practicing medicine culture, medicine practices, whether psychedelic or not, it's so imperative and important. Because what would that shame locked up in your lower back had then resulted to in your 40s, in your 50s, and in your 60s? And, it's like, what body work and also like psychological work did you do, therapy, of releasing that from your lower back? And also on your mind, like getting to walk taller and getting to say, no, actually, the rewrite. Oh, another thing is we talk about like, time travel, and we're sold time travel in Hollywood that it's like a physical machine, you go to a physical place and you move a physical item in that world, right? Which is like so kitschy. But real time travel happens when a plant medicine bends your concept of reality, bends your concept of time, and you're able to fly effortlessly to any point you've lived, past, present, future, or inner, and rewrite. And we're so stuck on like, oh, I would physically time travel and physically change a thing. And no, that's not the truth. The truth is that if you actually had the ability to time travel, you would change an emotional mental experience, because that is what informs or locks your power or unlocks your power. It's not about actually grabbing physical things in the physical world. And so when you get on a psychedelic, you do actual time travel for actual things that are important. And I had a very similar experience. So I was on peyote in a field, just to cut into it. And I laid back, like sprawled out, my arms back and my legs out. And I felt a tightness in this shoulder here. And this is, I broke a collarbone. I wanted to get through like my whole life without breaking a bone. And I got into mountain biking, which is like an extreme sport, and then would go to Colorado and ride these trails. And I did this heavy jump, and anyways, had to crash and had to fall on the shoulder and crack my collarbone. And so as I'm on the peyote and I'm stretched out, I'm just like tuning into this tightness. And this week that I was in Colorado and I broke the bone, me and my girlfriend at the time had like pretty heavy relationship troubles. And we ended up kind of breaking up. And so the collarbone was like a break in my body for things that were, I guess like in my emotional realm is what I'm trying to say. And so I remember the psychedelic provided this opportunity to pull out, it was like a filing cabinet. It was a filing cabinet of every emotional, like each file was an emotional storage, and it was a lot of feminine wounds. And so traveling into this collarbone break, pulling out this filing cabinet, I was able one by one to look at all of these different emotional wounds, mental wounds. And at the time, I had like a huge block towards my mother. And like my mother's like everything for me. And I was processing, not being raised by my biological father. They had split when I was in the womb. And upon meeting him in my 20s, I discovered like a great relationship out of that. And a consequence of that was I then harbored resentment towards my mom because she, like, in my mind, separated me from him. And I just had to be honest with that. Like, I know my mom's decision and I was behind my mother's decision, in my adulthood. But like, I had to be honest with my childlike state, which was like, I want a relationship with my dad and you kept me from that. And there was about 2 years with my mom where I just didn't really talk to her, wasn't vulnerable, wasn't really open. And I also was like, since the breakup with my girlfriend in my 20s, like hadn't dated anybody, felt really kind of heartbroken. And honestly, I kind of felt like I fused love and heartbreak together. It was something that needed to be healed. And I wasn't going to peyote to like specifically heal that, right? I wasn't even thinking about these things, but following the collarbone break. And I got this beautiful perspective over my mother that, she not only fell in love and had a tough decision to divorce this man who she had 2 children with, but I saw the perspective of her as a girl, right? Like hoping to be loved and cherished like we all do, a very innocent desire. And this woman had the bravery to like fall in love again and marry, which was my stepdad, the dad who raised me. And I just was never really fully able to honor her journey.
Yeah.
And I like could fully honor her bravery to love again, to build another family again, against all of her own heartbreak and wounds and fears. And that just like bursted my heart open towards my mother. I remember visiting her days after that experience, just fully cleared of any block or judgment or harboring any, tough emotions towards her. Similarly, my relationship heart, my romantic heart was healed, because I was looking at my ex and the decisions she made and the decisions I made. I was able to just apply a lot of grace and understanding in ways that I just was not able to. And that was all through following the body. And yeah. Oh, no. This is deeper. It's always deeper. Even deeper than all of that, I was able to tap into a multiple memories of being a kid, being young and being in my room. And I think I had like internal dialogue going on growing up, and probably some of that internal dialogue was just being uncertain of myself. Like, they weren't even like fully formed thoughts, but just feelings of like, am I accepted? Am I okay? I think as children, we all kind of had those questions. Like, you're just unsure about what you are and how you size up against the world and how you fit in. And I remember traveling to the room of my child self and speaking to myself that you are enough and you're welcomed and you're loved. And it was like I felt it shoot forward, like the rewrite of that internal dialogue. Like, I came out of that psychedelic experience like much more confident and sure of myself in a way that felt cellular. It was like in my cells, I felt a shift of story, because again, that story is written all over my body. It's held, right? Am I good enough? Am I welcome here? And I was like, oh, time travel is real. But it's just not what we were taught or what we think it is. And the real time travel is much more beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, that cellular change, that is a huge part of what comes from this for me, because I can know I have...
I'm going to turn this light off.
Okay.
Keep going.
I can know that I have a flaw or something that I'm blocked by, and I can make efforts physically in my world to Just like as a basic example that's unrelated, I'm going to drink more water and I'm going to work out more and I'm going to, those things can be they can assist in making changes. But like there's just something that happens on the medicine that takes away the need for ritual, for action, and it shifts it on a deeper layer very quickly. It is a very, like you walked away cellularly changed. Your mind going forward is made up in a new way that you can be confident, that you can love differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not something you can manufacture. I mean, will plays such a powerful part in so many things, but with that experience, you said you didn't know that that was what you were going to experience.
Mm-hmm.
You had a shoulder injury, and you had no idea going into it that that was what you were going to work with, and this feminine wound was there. And so sometimes when I go into a medicine journey, I have very clear intentions about what I want, and a lot of times it manifests itself exactly as of what my intention is, depending on how clear I am about it. And other times I go in and I say, God, Spirit, you know best, and show me what you want to show me, and I'm going to respond as organically as I can to meet what it is that is here and present and real. And those oftentimes are the most profound experiences.
Yeah, definitely being guided into it, and just the relationship to the body was, I think, a huge surprise for me, because at least in like our former religion of Christianity, like we're not really taught about the body or how to even interact with the body in a meaningful way.
Yet the body is the temple for the living God.
The body is the temple.
And there's such a big disconnect.
Yeah. And when yoga came about, it was demonized.
Yes. Still is in many ways.
Yeah, much more accepted now. But like, I think we've all learned, or those of us who've touched base with yoga, you're like, oh, this is me actually feeling my whole arm stretch. This is me consciously feeling my back stretch and becoming in tune with the tightness from week to week that comes from having to slam your brakes on the highway, right? That gets jolted into the body, right? Having a tough conflict in the workplace, you tighten up. And like, it's just a practice of like being conscientious of, did I release that tightening up that happened in the car earlier today? Did I release out of my back or out of my chest the moment where I felt like I couldn't vocalize myself? And these are like the most profound effects of yoga and body work. But then the psychedelic like drops you right into these areas and helps you identify. It's like such a help.
Yeah. Which medicine has been the most profound for you?
Wow, well, it's I guess it's not so much like medicine to medicine as it is like the types of experiences I've had. I've worked with peyote the most on a quantitative level. Man, I would say like I remember this great woman, Donna Lee, came to one of our peyote ceremonies, and she said, "Miles," she like took me to the side. She's like, "Miles, I just did ayahuasca, and oh my God." And at that time, it was like, okay, what's the new medicine? Where's this headed? And everyone was kind of bringing in their different experiences. So it was really exciting. And she just like could hardly even put into words the profundity of how powerful and full this sort of medicine was. And she's like, it took me 2 years to sort of like integrate or to work through what was shown on Aya. And I had came across other people who had said it took them years after, right? So a mushroom trip, you do a mushroom journey for a weekend, you have a solid week or two of integration, maybe a month, maybe a couple months of integration. Similar with peyote. Peyote, you kind of integrate relatively quickly because of the nature of it. And there's just a different range of how long after a psychedelic trip it takes to kind of ground in. And certainly with my experience with Aya and Ecuador was like literally I feel like I'm just now coming back into form. And it's funny because I thought I was in form several times the past couple of years, but I'm like more in a fully integrated state. And a lot of that was from the explosion or implosion that happened to me on that medicine and that journey, right? It was so much learning. I felt like it wasn't until 2 months after, you're trying to describe these experiences to people, which is always a really fun process. But it wasn't until 2 months in one of the conversations I said I felt like I had 7 brains, and it felt like a U shape. It felt like I had like 3 brains up here and 3 brains up here, and every brain was fully turned on, and they all were learning at the same time for hours and hours and hours and hours on end. And just one Miles Allen brain fully turned on learning is a lot of information. But imagine like 7 brains learning all at once. And so, we talk about going away from a psychedelic experience with, like a bag, or like, you have all of these presents to be opened up over time, where you reflect on meanings, or, a week later you watch a movie or you hear a song and it unlocks a code or a symbol on your psychedelic journey, right? So these things can take a while to actually unpack all the gifts that are given, the gifts given from yourself to yourself. However, it just took a lot of movies and shows and books and songs and hearing other people's stories to unpack each one of these lessons and perspectives of life. But mainly, it totally, I kind of describe it like I took my ego, and just how if you run chalk across the sidewalk, how it just like scrapes into that little bit, and then it's like disappears. Like my ego was just scraped across concrete into little tiny bits until it was just nothing. And it was like my identity, my stories, my worldview, my beliefs about spirituality, my storyline of what reality is, who I kind of was, my purpose, what my missions were, what my drive was, all of that just got scraped into a powdered dust. And, I sat really quiet for 2 weeks afterwards. It was the quietest I've ever been. People were like, man, I've never seen you so quiet. And I remember sitting at a friend's house out back and staring at the woods. And I remember thinking, wow, that was really strange. I don't think I've just sat and looked in a very long time. And the following weekend, there was a gathering with a fire, and there was a voice that said, can you just sit here? I mean, it was like 30 people. There was like drums going and guitars and storytelling and laughter. And, typically I'd be drawn to all of those things. And I remember hearing a voice like, can you just sit here and stare at the fire? And I remember thinking that's not typically what I could do or want to do, and I did. And I was just hollowed out. Some people call it the hollow bone, being an empty vessel. I was just empty. And it was the first time in a long time after filling myself with story and content. And so I sat really quiet. And I reformed myself within 2 months. I put on this like I pieced together an ego and pieced together a personality and kind of continued. But that was just to get me through the next season. But yeah, the past 2 years was a deep rest, like a deep quieting of, my internal, author, my internal writer of who am I, what am I doing? And I'm just now kind of like re-engaging people in conversations, re-engaging spiritual talk again. Haven't really jumped into psychedelics again. But definitely I'm excited to see what form am I coming into, and what is this next season look like for me. I know the previous season was out of this galaxy. I mean, it was a big journey. So I'm like, wow, if that was that, what is ahead of me? So yeah, we'll see.
That was great.
That was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like how just your perspective on things. It's like you say things that I know to be true, but it's so good to have somebody outside of yourself to share their experience for you to be like, yep, because you were talking about the gifts that come after a medicine journey, and I just feel like that is such a really great way to put it, that I know to be true looking back, but I just didn't have the words for it. Like that moment when it clicks, when you're listening to a song or you are alone, and then all of a sudden a thought comes in, and you go back to that moment and you get to take it a little bit deeper, and the medicine is just still working. And that's kind of like what I was explaining earlier. Like some of the things from those two journeys I didn't unpack for like 6 months. You know?
Yes, and what I'd say to that is like, it's almost like in the psychedelic realm, you're able to have experiences that you actually can't comprehend. And you're able to move through things that you can't wrap your head around, but it changes you. But you could never really narrate how or why. And those words those understandings, those like more on the forefront, the conscious understanding comes 6 months later, a year later. And that's kind of what like the medicine culture is being around different people who have had different ceremonies, who know what it's like to be at a hangout or be in a conversation and go, wait, whoa, I'm dropping back in right now. And when you're around like people, it's like, all right, let's bring the drums or the feathers or whatever we need to do, because you can actually re-enter in and either re-experience it with a conscious mind or go deeper, like you said. And we've certainly dipped in there many times. And yeah, I love that sort of medicine culture of like, we're all just doulas to birthing these like deeper experiences, these deeper perspectives or gifts. All right, so we have Hape, which is a medicine from the Amazon. It's a different crushed up tree ash, crushed up tobacco, and different herbs. This one is called Kuntanawa. It's what they say is courage. So, do you want me to serve you first, or
Whatever works.
it all works?
It all works. That's
okay.
good.
So I'm going to load up this. Oh my gosh, Zach, we're doing this. Okay.
It's been a long time since I've done rapé.
It's been a long time since he's done rapé. So,
you were the last person to administer rapé for me.
Yeah. Yep. When we lived together, maybe 2 years ago, 2.5 at this point. It's just fun, man. Let's just have fun. We're
just here to have fun. Yeah. Okay.
Let's get on here. Let's just have fun.
We're doing this a new way. Who else is doing rapé before a podcast, right? So we're hoping to just kind of...
We're mixing the South America and the North America. All right. So we're going to...
Which nostril?
You're going to exhale. And then you're going to inhale. And you're going to hold at the top of the breath. All right. And then I'm going to put it in and then blow. And then we're going to try to get the second...
Still holding all this air?
No.
Okay.
We're going to try to get the second nostril relatively close. So whenever you can kind of like pull yourself back together, do another breath at the top. And then I'll put it in the other nostril and then go. And then like drop in fully.
I thought I was supposed to breathe this in.
Oh, do you want to do it that way? That's an advanced way of doing it. So one way of doing it is you hold your breath at the top, so that your breath isn't moving.
No. I'm breathing it in, folks.
The advanced way is that you have your breath at the bottom, and as I blow, you sniff.
Yeah.
And that's wild, folks, because very few people know
it's
that.
It's intense, but
very few people know to do that, and Zach wants to do that. So we can do that.
Okay.
We have a snow goose feather here to fan the aura. You guys get it. You get it. If you get it, you know it. If you know it. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to do your left.
Okay. Went straight down the throat.
Do you have any words you want to share? All right. The holy silence.
If anyone's curious about what I'm feeling right now, the first sensation when you breathe it in, it sends this heat into your head, your nose, and it radiates all the way up to the top of your skull. And it burns, and you sit with it because you know that it's going to pass. But what comes after it is this of stillness in the body and the mind. It's very relaxing, believe it or not. It's a great practice for calling in courage in this case. Stillness, clarity, and intention. It slows you down so that your words are more thoughtful. And it brings a relaxation for me that if I close my eyes, I can kind of move with energy. And being more connected to the body, which has its own senses and intelligence. And I just like to rest there.
Yeah. Also known as it hurts like fuck when it's going up your nose. Also known as it's really a sort of pain. They call it one of the warrior medicines. So there's like a camp of warrior medicines, and a part of the warrior medicines is there's like an intense sharp pain. And a part of the medicine is to like play with the pain that you're experiencing. And so with Hape, it pierces in your upper nose, and it's a part of it's like the chemical compounds within the powder, the tree ash and the tobacco, and it is just like this intense pain that you always forget is so painful, and it always hits you in the nose like a train, and you're like grappling with like, oh my gosh, like how do I regulate this pain? And it's like yeah, some people liken it to like that feeling of like getting chlorine up your nose, like that burn. The beautiful thing about rape is it's this high intense burn where it pulls all of your senses into your body. I mean, if you were like distracted or thinking about other things, like you are centered. And then you have to breathe through that pain. You have to invite the pain in. You have to become one with the pain. And that process sort of dissolves the pain and transmutes it into a sort of euphoric, sort of like magma type feeling, like this warm kind of like euphoria that then trails down the back of your head if it's traveling in a good spot. And then you feel like intense openness. If your sinuses are ever closed, you feel like a third eye, of course, a third eye opening, but also just on the physical, this like clarity within this space that is also good for hunting. So it's like rapé is like to pull your visual senses, to heighten them, and also just like your awareness in the jungle when you're hunting. So this is like a warrior hunter medicine.
Yeah, and when you said that, my like inner teacher was just wanting to share that how close are we to pain all the time, and how much do we try to run from it, avoid it. But really, if we are with it, how close are we to clarity on the other side? How close to euphoria are we? And I think that's constant struggle with being human, is like wanting to run and avoid the pain. But it is just so closely wrapped up with so much wisdom. And the body is like extremely intelligent and has messages of its own. It's incredible.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, and you know, right now I'm thinking of like emotional pain or mental suffering, right? So it's like the dimensions of pain, whether it's like you've been in a workout routine or whatever and strained some part of your body, or maybe you're out of shape and you injured yourself in a way. And either way, that pain brings a deep awareness to part of your body that you were maybe atrophied or numb to, or wasn't quite as appreciative of the movement when you had it. And yeah, the culture of like numbing pain or shunning pain even. You know, I was talking earlier about depression and emotional pain, and how like I've always been with it and never needed it to go anywhere and never found it was problematic. You know, I was like, you know, diagnosed with depression in high school, and, you know, it's like, we got to solve this problem. And I found so much poetry and wisdom, you know, in my winter depression. I was like, I actually want to keep this. Can I have it? Because it's good. But yeah, it's been sitting with the pain. But yeah, I think these like warrior medicines, or really any practice and culture. Me and Zach had joined CrossFit surprisingly this April and May, and there's like a lot of pain within the class, like the moment you get to, and it's like similar to rapé. Like I would say is like you reach this threshold and you're like, I cannot move anymore, I can't lift anymore. There's like a pain threshold, there's like a halt.
Yeah.
And then you like transmute that pain, you dissolve that pain, you dissolve the blocks in your mind, mainly it's the stories, and you just pick that weight up or continue that movement, and before you know, like you're like finishing the workout and the pain has become your power in a way, you know.
And how many times in like those sessions of working out, and in a group setting too, did you feel like I'm out of breath, I cannot go any further, or my body is I'm about to fall, I can't do one more row, one more pull up, one more jumping jack, and you're like, no, I can, I'm going to push, and then you get a new result, and that is a form of entrainment, and that is really like the most powerful way to break a limiting belief, and to form a new habit, to build resilience, to build strength. And the rapé, I mean, it does that all in itself. I'm feeling like it's funny because we usually do this like outside, just sitting across from each other, holding space for the other, usually no words. So there's a feeling of like almost shame for the fact that we're doing it on camera. I knew it would be a good idea.
I can resonate with that. Yeah, it's interesting.
I knew it would be a good idea because it would bring us into a space of like, we're pushing the envelope, right? And then there's like, oh, there's this old story that, oh, this isn't how the medicine's supposed to be done. And also, it's going to ignite a really passionate conversation. And also, who else is watching this that doesn't know what rapé is, or who is up against pain, right, and needs a new perspective. So this is really interesting for me because I'm wrestling with myself even in the moment, like, oh, I need to be quiet, I need to be with my body, or do I share? You know, it's very interesting to observe the experience in this way.
Yeah, no, I feel that. It's interesting, the shame part. Like,
Yeah.
no, this is like so inappropriate. Like that shame part, like so for real. And I wouldn't have wanted to touch it or look at it, until you pointed it out. But yeah, it's like, hape rape. Maybe it's a sacred medicine. What's the concept of sacred? Maybe Westerners should be doing it, or like, whatever. And then where does it hold place and space for the medicine culture or ceremony culture? And sometimes rape is done before a mushroom journey or peyote journey, or certainly ayahuasca. And yeah, we in our own medicine culture have always like been outside, have a singing bowl and the drum, and we're like get into the deepest, highest, farthest meditation that we possibly can. And we're like, should we do rape to start this talk off? And yeah, it's just like, it's like, are we doing drugs? It's like still that feeling of like, this is like less than, or like shouldn't be done, or like shouldn't be shared or something. But that shame is so, yeah, it feels inappropriate, but it's definitely there.
So much safer than cocaine. So much more ethical.
Well, and yeah, I'm not gonna, I ain't gonna get on cocaine, but yeah, and I think the intention of hape rape, again, hape isn't a psychedelic, so it's not a mind altering substance. Also, it's not like super euphoric either, like cocaine, right? It simply brings pain to a region of your body where you're forced to pay attention to it. And I mean, you're certainly able to travel with rape if you're good at meditation, or you're good at moving in the body. I've had a lot of far out experiences on hape, but at best it's a nicotine buzz after the fact. But yeah, so I guess it's my turn.
It is.
And
that first nostril, man, it just like went straight to the throat. I felt it drop. It was really potent.
Yeah, definitely. In dealing with like the nasal passages, like there's all sorts of ways that this can, like the outcome of it, right? It could just go straight and get stuck. It could sometimes shoots all the way back to the back of the throat, which has its own medicine. Man, okay.
And if you're watching, the way that it was administered just now was a very gentle breath. It wasn't like he was blowing gently, and I was working with his breath and his exhale was working with my inhale very slowly, but it immediately knew where to go. It's really cool in that way. I don't know if there's any depth to that, but it feels deep to me.
Yeah, there's different styles of blows within this culture, the medicine. Like the hummingbird is like a short rapid, and then you have like a long slow, and then a fast at the end, like a different ways to like put it into the body. And usually when I administer, I kind of ask, or sometimes I do it intuitively, but we're here, so I'm gonna breathe in and hold.
Okay.
It's a good thing to be in the human body.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. This is like one of those moments where I feel like completely or deeply relaxed, and it's probably this week and this day, but also this moment. It's like I feel fully in my body and present, but also just like rested, like a sense of peace. And usually always with this medicine, I feel like a really heavy weight of gratitude. I don't know how it does it or why it does it, but it's like this full wave of gratitude. I firstly always think about the earth, and it's like a real emotional moment, but just the earth and our ancestors, really our human ancestors, not divided by continent or anything, but just all our ancestors before us who discovered all of these medicines across the planet. I'm always like brought to that attention, that we have these things to help our bodies, to help our spirit and this human experience to get through it and to come back to a grounded space, and just always thankful for the hands that prepared this, and just all the testing and trials that the ancients probably had to do to really like craft these things out of the Amazon, at least this medicine. And the courage is written on this one, and it's like was a long journey to just even get in front of a camera or behind a mic, which maybe is surprising to some who know me, but written on it is courage. And I was like meditating or feeling that word, and I was like, man, there's not a piece in me that doesn't feel brave, or there's not a part in me that feels scared of anything, and not of myself, and not of this world I live in. And for me, it's been a long journey the past 2 years of returning to safety and returning to bravery for a lot of reasons. And it's definitely the feeling that I'm encompassed by right now. Just also like our brotherhood and friendship of just the space that we've held for each other to be ourselves, or to be present in the body, to face fears, opportunities to be courageous. And with this warrior medicine, it's a micro experience of a macrocosm experience. I'm just like, are you ready to be human? Are you here? And yeah. Wow. And the buzz is real. I'm definitely feeling awake and alive.
Yeah, I felt some anxiety leading up to it. I don't know if it was because, hey, this is the first time that I'm sitting down to podcast with you. We've talked about this a long time, and it's probably a culmination of the two. Or if it's the fact that I'm about to have a bunch of tobacco up my nose and it's going to burn. But once the burning sensation passed, it got rid of all of the tension in the chest that I was trying to breathe through that would have taken time. It just immediately it helped remove it and brought some ease into the body.
Whew, it's in my throat.
Yeah. I get some water.
Like, we did probably a mild amount, but like a real heavy shaman dose is like quite a lot. And you can either like spit it out or swallow it, and it'll hit your stomach. That's a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
this is so funny and fun that we just didn't drop it and recorded it. Shoot, I've probably done that medicine like hundreds of times throughout the years. So yeah, it's also nice to find ourselves in like a quieted space.
Yeah,
which is a dimension of our connection. But it's definitely like we have the propensity to be rowdy.
big time. It's gonna get rowdy at some point. I hope.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
After our medicine talk, I was like, you're like, that was good. I was like, oh shit, is this it? Yeah, it's hard to know when to end.